2001, the Ellis Park disaster, where we lost 41 football fans. But of course, arising out of that, there was the Mepe Judicial Commission, and a lot of things came out to strengthen the pre-match arrangements, selling of tickets beforehand, strengthening the training of security, stewards, and basically making stadiums safe for fans. Some of these things have also been translated into the CAF licensing requirements, more stringent investigation in the facilities that's provided for all its competitions, so that fans can be safe. And of course then the capacity, that if the stadium has a capacity of 20,000, unfortunately on the continent, fans arrive late, arrive without tickets, they then push, and if there are 20,000 seats, there must not be 30,000 pushing through the gates. So all of these things need to be strengthened so that we can bring an end to the disasters in our stadium. Of course, this is not exclusive to the African continent. We had many disasters in Europe, in South America, in Asia, and the reason for it is basically the same. So that was one of the key matters that was discussed. The second thing is, of course, when it comes to the two premier competitions on the African continent, the FIFA World Cup and the AFCON. In both cases, you'll find that the competitions, the World Cup from 2026 will now be a 48-team event, and Africa will get 9.5 number of teams. In other words, 9 teams will qualify automatically for the World Cup, and the other one will play off against a team from Asia or South America. So theoretically, Africa can have up to 10 teams in the World Cup. And I just looked at the ranked list of African teams on the FIFA ranked list, and also South Africa. Egypt is the highest ranked African team at number 24 on the FIFA ranked list. They're number 1 on the CAF ranked list. Senegal is 27. They're number 2 on the CAF ranked list. Congo DR is number 28. They're number 3. Tunisia is number 34. They're number 4. Cameroon is 36. They're number 5. Nigeria is 39. They're number 6. Burkina Faso is number 44. The number 7 on the CAF rank list. Algeria 48, 8. Ghana number 50 on 9. Cote d'Ivoire 56 on 10. Mali 59 on 11. Morocco 60, number 12. And South Africa 64, number 13 on the CAF rank list. Those are the highest ranked teams of Africa in relation to the FIFA rank list. So it means that if we have 10 teams, a lot of work needs to be done on the African continent so that these teams can increase our standing, not just on the FIFA rank list, but in actual play. The second matter that, of course, was concluded is that the increase of the number of teams in AFCON. Now, you know, when AFCON started, strangely, that CAF was formed by South Africa also being a member. And when it became the first African Cup of Nations in 1957, South Africa was banned from playing. So it was a 3-team tournament in 1957. In 1992, it became 12 teams. And in 1996, as you know, it was a 16-team tournament. However, Nigeria was banned from playing by the then government of Nigeria. And of course, the African Cup of Nations in '96 was hosted in South Africa. So the first time that you had a 16-team event for AFCON was in 1998 in Burkina Faso after South Africa '96. And now, of course, in 2019, it will be an African Cup of Nations. That's 21 years later of 24 teams. And of course, immediately the question was raised is, are you not now excluding the majority of the African countries from hosting because they struggle to provide 4 stadiums for a 16-team event. Now there's a minimum of 6 stadiums in a 24-team event. And the man in the workshop who suggested the solution was Evre Renard. He said, no, we already have the solution. In Equatorial Guinea and Gabon, you had co-hosting. In Nigeria and Ghana, co-hosting. So African countries can co-host to host a 24-nation event. But of course, there will be further investigations in terms of Cameroon, where the 2019 AFCON will be the first one of 24 teams. And there are 12 groups playing for Africa qualification. South Africa, of course, is number 1 on that list, and the top 2 will qualify out of our group. And that, of course, strengthens the chances. As far as the World Cup qualifiers are concerned, you know, there too, we are top of the group. We have 4 points from 2 matches, and in September the 1st and the 5th, we're playing Cape Verde, home and away. That can be significant in taking us a step closer to 2018 World Cup in Russia. And then we play Burkina Faso at home and then Senegal away. As far as the junior competitions are concerned, the age category competitions, there are a long discussion on this matter too. Both in terms of the performance of African youth teams in the World Cup for under 17, under 20 and the Olympics, but also the issue was raised of if you look at the African team's youth performance in relation to the progress and ultimately its success at senior level, there seems to be something amiss. In the under 17 team, under 17 World Cup, Nigeria is the best performing team in the world, won the cup 5 times. In under 20, Ghana won it in 2009. In the Olympics in 1996, Nigeria won it. Atlanta Olympics in 2000, Cameroon won it in Sydney Olympics. However, when we go to the World Cup, the best performance of an African team has been to reach the quarterfinals. In 1990, Cameroon did it. In 2002, Senegal, and again in 2010, here behind us at the stadium, Ghana reached the quarterfinals, and then with the help of the hands of Suarez, took them out of the World Cup. And that was the best performance. We have not reached semi-final, we've not reached a final, and certainly we've not come close at winning the event. And the question is why? And maybe you have the answer to that question. Because in other continents, you see the progress. If you look at Spain, Spain won the Under-20 World Cup, went into the Olympics, won the Euro finals, and then won the World Cup in the stadium behind us. So you can see the progression, and somehow there is something amiss. Of course, one of the things that we discussed as well is the question of age cheating. Because we have seen that a against every country almost on the continent, there was a problem around playing overage players. And overage players or age cheating is essentially where you try and get competitive advantage over the opposition by fielding older players against younger players, and therefore you have a competitive advantage, which has nothing to do with football. And that is an issue that we have to address and bring an end to age cheating, because it doesn't help us. CAF and FIFA has also agreed that greater measures must be taken. In fact, I think about 1.4 million euros has been set aside to subject these players to tests. In the period of 2003 to 2007, in the tests that FIFA conducted, about 35% of the players in age category competition was found to be overage. So it's very clear that there is a problem, because 35% is quite a high number of players playing in the competition. And there are a whole host of reasons why that is so. Of course, we also looked at the under-20 performance of the African team. The best performance of the under-20 African team was of Zambia, who made it to the quarterfinals. South Africa and Guinea dropped out in the first round, and Senegal went to the second round. But again, it's not the kind of performance that we expected from the African representatives in the Under-20 World Cup, which has just concluded in Korea. So, as far as South Africa is concerned, we have a number of junior competitions coming up. The Under-20 women's team is starting to play qualifications for the Under-17 World Cup in Uruguay. And we start by playing against Botswana. And then the Under-20, also Women's World Cup. In France 2018, we start by playing against Namibia, and then we go through the qualifications. And then the seniors, African Cup of Nations for seniors, and there we start playing in February next year for qualification for the 2018 World Cup, African Cup of Nations in Ghana, and then 3 of the teams from Ghana will qualify for the World Cup, and we hope that Banyana will be one of the 3 to qualify for our first ever Women's World Cup. You know that we have 19 Banyana players playing overseas now. We have a total of 435,000 women players. That women's football is the 3rd biggest women's sport in this country. After netball and athletics, women's football is the biggest. And it has grown tremendously. From 2012 to today, a growth of over 200 players. It moved from 212 to 435,000 players that we have. So we, of course, must prepare for these competitions. I see Dominic has made copies for you. Dominic can give you a copy, and we'll then have to look at the question. As far as the club, inter-club is concerned, and Pinky is dealing with inter-club matters, you also know that South African number of clubs have increased. We will now in the future have 4 clubs in the Champions League. And that is because of the performance of our club and of our clubs in the Champions League. I think CAF has also congratulated South Africa because of the shift in the attitude of our clubs towards the inter-club competition. I don't want to tell you about the past, you know it, that you can be guaranteed that our clubs will withdraw. Now there's a different approach. Now clubs want to participate, clubs want to be there, and now again we are in the quarterfinals of both competitions, which is good for for South Africa standing in CAF and in world football, as our clubs are more serious about this competition. And because of that, it's Egypt, South Africa has been given 4 places or 4 clubs in the 32-team club inter-club competition. In September of this year also, there is going to be a conference on club licensing in South Africa. It's a conference that is jointly organized by CAF and by FIFA, and again to deal with all of the issues relating to club football on the continent, as CAF tried to strengthen the overall professionalization of club football on the African continent, and also greater revenue to improve the product, to be able to take a better product into the market and generate more revenue for African football and club football on the continent.